Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wild Woman podcast. I have Roisin Lennon, who is originally from County Clare, with me here as a guest today, and I'm really delighted. I'm going to read a little bit about her first before we get into conversation, but as we spoke before briefly, and I had a little bit of a look at her background and work, and words that come to me when I started to read about her were like being a creative, a creator, a medicine woman, a woman of the land, an alchemist, ancestral wisdom and knowing, divine feminine. These are all words I just sort of felt off her, and a very strong connection to Ireland and the land and nature and communing with nature. And it just, yeah, if you're looking at her on this podcast, you'll see her in a moment. She is the epitome of the sort of Irish, the real Irish energy and nature is just what really just I feel very much when I speak to her. I'm just going to share a few words in her own words, and then we'll get into the podcast. But she has set up Studio Fassa outside Galway. And Fassa, I'm not a great Gaeilgeoir, but I think means knowledge and knowing. So a studio or a place of knowing. And Róisín is passionate about learning as much as possible, about as much as possible, as she journeys through life and feels that to share this passion is part of why she is here. Having grown up in the countryside of County Clare and spending her childhood immersed in the beauty of this island's nature and landscape, from the fields and mountains to the coastal beaches and Atlantic Sea, Róisín developed a keen interest in how we are presented with endless beauty in colour, texture, and design as she walked and played on our exquisite land. It's a beautiful language. This led her to study at Limerick College of Art, focusing on fashion design. She has enjoyed a fruitful career subsequently as a costume designer in the film, TV, and theatre industry. And along with her passion for art and design, Róisín is also trained as a homeopath. She felt drawn towards this medicine through her personal experiences, being treated by and using the remedies successfully in the treatment of disease. A beautiful description, and it brings to mind we are never just one thing. We are so multifaceted and so multidimensional. Welcome, Róisín. So delighted to have you on the podcast.
Oh, Gahinta, Gurmila Wagat. Thank you
Uh,
so much. Wonderful.
False wrote. Isn't that right? Beautiful,
Oh,
beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. That made my heart actually really sing to hear
Oh,
recounted back to me my own words. So thank you, Celine.
you're very welcome.
What a
It's a
beautiful gift you've given me already today.
oh, well, thank you. We're always in that exchange, aren't we? We're always,
Oh, that is my wish. That is
yeah.
my true wish that we are reflections of each other and reflections of the beauty of each other.
Beautiful. Talk a little more about that as we start. That's such a beautiful way to start.
Well, I mean, I believe that that is what my life has always been about. And I think that in a quantum field in which we live, this beautiful reality in which we live, this is how I have developed my joie de vivre, I suppose, and the fact that there's something beautiful to admire every single day. And I guess, I mean, we're reflecting very negative energies at each other a lot of the time on this earth, especially in the West at the moment. But there's so many ways in which to reflect each other's inner nature and inner beauty. And,
Mm,
she has it on display all the time. This is how you do it.
yeah,
Like nobody could miss it.
yeah.
It's I remember of, oh yeah, to notice we're being presented with beauty endlessly in this world. And, that's not coming from a naive perspective or, oh my God, does she not see what's going on in the world? Or, I do, and I'm very much aware of how our human nature is being manipulated, how orchestrating ourselves, and it's just so deeply saddening because we have so much beauty to be reflected within ourselves, within nature, within all of the creatures that we share this earth with. Uh,
Yes. But do you think this is part of, in my sense, I just share my perspective, that it's so beautiful what you describe, and every day I'm brought back to nature. I've said it ever since as well. I was diagnosed with cancer. It's just like nature has sort of found its, I'm finding my way back, or it's finding its way back to me, or I'm finding my way back to it, because it is what I am, that intelligence running through us. And it's just, as you said, the beauty. It's hard not to, you know, you recognize that we're surrounded by it so much. But also, just when you say about, I know that maybe the things that are going on in the world that are difficult, my sense is that all of this is just being cleared. So, there
mm,
has been, how do you see then what is happening? Because as you said, I know it is very saddening as well.
cheekers. I mean, I do feel that we are at an end of a way of living, for sure. I mean, the way that I find myself describing the current health situation of the planet is um, it's kind of complex. And obviously, as a homeopath, I look at things in
Mm,
their complexity. And, I feel that disease presents itself in many different ways. And currently, I feel that the earth is so she's at the end stages of an abscess that had to burst. So there was a lot of blackness and a deadening and an oppressive, I'm talking about Western culture a lot, and most of Indigenous cultures have been oppressed and kept down. And of course, if we look at a physicality of that within a wound, let's say, or an abscess, or a physical occurrence. So the blackness is there. And then once healing starts to begin, I feel that we're in deep, deep healing at the moment. Once healing starts to begin, then pus forms. So that's the yellow stage, the pus. So that's it all coming to the surface, which we've witnessed now for at least the last century, if not more. Um, and of course, within that, and it is absolutely heartbreaking to witness, but blood. There's blood then, and there has been a lot of blood shed for no good reason. And then, like this, I'm talking about the suppuration of an abscess. And then once the blood has stopped, then clear water comes out. And that's the abscess gone. And that's
mm,
sure after happening. And I mean, I suppose I see things on a very physical realm and a very spiritual realm at the same time. And I do believe that what we're witnessing, we have to witness in order
mm,
for humanity to find their heart space and to start using the intelligence of the heart again,
mm,
like would once have been. And, I mean, we can talk about matriarchy, patriarchy, we can talk about all the labels that the English language has for it, but basically, to love each other is really the be all and the end all of why we're here. And look at her again now, giving us all the stuff
mm.
after a winter of dying off, and all the stuff is back again. I mean, does that not teach us that it is an endless abundance of love? And even when destruction is abound, even when disrespect is abound through all sorts of use of all sorts of substances, still the loving, giving, generous mother provides every single year. And father, it's a mother and father act. That's why it's not really, I don't see it as being, there's maybe an imbalance of divine male and female energy after happening on the planet, but that's through human beings. All of the other species are operating as per usual.
Mm, mm. That's such a beautiful, it's just so beautiful how you describe it. It's like, yeah, I just keep being reminded, well, for me, I'm coming back to our true nature. And that isn't, maybe always a very, it's a bit of a messy process, isn't it? It's,
Yeah.
we've been so far removed. But let's jump back a bit just to the very beginning. I just had this image before we started of you as a child and just wondering what was young Róisín like when she came in? I always see each of us popping in to the planet and we've a blueprint and then we sort of forget and then we remember. Did you forget? Or what was Róisín like as a child?
I think, I mean, I've been very lucky to be born with such a joy and appreciation for life, and I've witnessed many very sorrowful things within my own life. But as a child, I was very joyful and very, very inquisitive. I've always been so inquisitive. I need to know. I want to explore everything that nature has to give us. So I would have been born into a business family in Limerick originally. My mother's people were business people, and my mother and father were both Limerick people. And my father was an architect with the town hall in Limerick, and my mother ran a business that was her family business. So they decided when we were young children. So we would have played in Limerick City. We lived right in the city. And we would have played behind the Hunt Museum by the Shannon River. So they would be my earliest memories of getting out and about into nature. We used to go to the park behind the Hunt Museum, and then there were steps down to the Shannon, which of course is tidal in Limerick because it's coming into the estuary. So that would have been our little beach to play on when the tide was out in the park. We'd be down there exploring shells and thinking this is the next best thing to being in Quilty or Spanish Point that we're going to get at the moment. And in fact, I fell in there one day and nearly drowned when my older sibling was with me. So a man from the Simon community, actually, who was leaning by a tree, my mom was up the way speaking with my aunt and just didn't spot me going over and down the steps because I was only about 3. I thought the tide was always out there and it was safe to go down. But of course, the tide wasn't out when I decided to hop over. There was all of the older siblings about, so I thought, anyway, I didn't think straight. Anyway, thankfully, I was hooked up by a beautiful homeless man and down to Barrington's Hospital, pumped out. So and the water in general since that. And so we would have moved out to the countryside then, out to Partine and then O'Brien's Bridge and Killaloo, all that area I grew up in. And sure, we were just off out every day. That was our lives. You know, it was a different world then. I mean, I remember walking to St. Michael's School in Limerick from our house by myself in junior infants. That was the life. You know, it was a much more trusting. This is what I mean, art space. Even then, I remember people trusting each other so much more. and people trusting children, which is something that I really truly believe in, is to trust our children, because it is into their hands that this is all going. We have
Yes.
to trust them to make good decisions. We really, really do. So, one of my earliest memories is a dress, which, I've always been drawn to fashion. And
Yes. What was it about
another,
fashion that really drew you in?
I've just always liked to be in nice clothes, in representing. I feel that I try and represent nature as much as possible in my clothing. So, like the morphic resonance, like we're, it's our relative the same way as other human beings are our relatives. And it's just lovely, and it's nice to have a sense of style about yourself as well, because I mean, it may not go for everybody who's not into fabrics and textiles and clothing, but for me personally, clothes make me happy, fabrics make me happy, they make me feel good, they make me feel like myself, certain things, and then certain things don't make me feel like myself, and I'm like, okay, I know that's in fashion, but
Mm.
me. Whereas there would have been times, it's funny, as we get older, we kind of lean into our sense of style much more, even as fashion designers, or
And that you went on a career of fashion and costume design then, did you? You were are you still in the
yeah,
film and
I dip in and out of it at the moment, Celine. It's a hardcore industry, it's a
mm,
very, very long houred, very stressful, highly stressful industry. I mean, I studied homeopathy when my children were babies. And then after that, I went back towards fashion and costume. So I've always had a foot in both camps, really, ever since.
it's a
Ever
real
since,
interesting mix or something. There's sort of a
yeah.
the sort of healing and how have you found working in the film industry, or like how I know you said highly stressful and all, but like how do you see it?
I mean, it depends on what production you're on. You know,
Mm,
you can be working with some really good storylines and a really good production, and I mean, basically, it's an art form, and I really enjoy it. I adore the technicalities of it. I adore breaking down a script, getting into a person's character, uh, reading the script. You see, it's not very far away from homeopathy when you break it down,
isn't it?
because
Okay.
you're looking for nuances. You're looking for, oh yeah, so yeah, you're kind of picking up on emotions and clothes that reflect emotions, states of mind, states of wealth, states of non-wealth. And I mean, when I'm taking a homeopathic case, I'm looking for nuances, because there's billions of remedies. So they're not a million. In fact, they're very
Yeah.
close. It's a very close analysis in my mind, because I believe that any kind of design is all about picking out the nuances, and it's the attention to the smaller details, which goes for health, and it goes for style, and it goes for telling a story. So, I mean, with film and theatre and TV work, what I adore about it is the telling of the story, and to just push yourself to as much of a length as possible to tell that story, even if you know that somebody, like for example, I dressed the Rising, the 1916 Rising one time, and I knew from researching it, that because research is a big part of historical period work, I knew from researching it that Oliver Plunkett, who was one of the signatories of the proclamation, I knew that he had liaised with the indigenous people of the Americas.
Oh.
And he was a flamboyant character. So his costume was, I had a blue velvet cloak for him because he did wear one over his uniform. But I found this ring when I was sourcing for the job, and it had a buffalo on one side and an American chief on the other side, an indigenous chief on the other side. Now, nobody watching that, well, I mean, somebody may have spotted that or may not. But for me, that gave that actor a connection to the person that he was displaying. And so that piece, it was a sovereign ring, just a piece of costume jewelry. It's those kind of nuances that really you're thinking into the characters, you're thinking into the scene, you're thinking into the history, and you're trying to represent it in as much honesty and visual representation as possible as you can within your budget, within, so I mean, it's all very challenging. It's all within a budget. It's all, sometimes you have a huge budget, sometimes you have nothing. I work both ends of the scale. For me, it's about the creativity, and it's about honoring the story that needs to be told.
That's wow. That's such a beautiful, when and I read even as well the way you talked about creativity. I think it was on your website, which I really liked, about it being both, bringing both the physical and the spiritual together. And that in doing that sort of a magical, I've always felt that because when I was younger, I can remember looking at people I saw as being very creative and feeling, oh my God, I'd love to be like that. Because the way we can box people into they're creatives, they're not, they're this, they're that. And I always used to feel like, I think it's in The Artist's Way. I followed The Artist's Way, program in the book. And they talk about the shadow artist, where you surround yourself with people who you perceive to be very creative because you can almost bask a bit in that because you're not that. And yet I always felt there's something missing in how, as me growing up, how creativity was viewed. And I think it is that spiritual dimension. That's just a personal, because for me, that's where all of my creativity has come from. It's sort of a channeling through of that beautiful cosmic intelligence that just moves through like nature. Is that how creativity has shown up for you, or have you always had an awareness of that?
And I mean, it's so that, because once you start putting your energy into a focus of, let's say for instance, how I found that ring, I was thinking, like, so many times within my costume career, I've been, developing a story, developing a look.
Yeah.
The universe collaborates. Once you're putting your energy in, the universe collaborates and you start finding bits and bobs. I mean, for that particular character, I needed a pair of size 8 riding boots, and we were shooting in Ballinasloe, and I needed them within the next hour. For some reason, I found myself driving out this road. There's a tack shop out the road. I found out that it was out the road. There was a pair of size 8 riding boots, vintage, leather, old stuff, like, once you start down that creative, once you're in the creative flow, the universe collaborates with you. It's like the Fibonacci sequence, the golden spiral. That is by adding one, by adding the previous. So you're putting energy
Yes.
in, and then you're adding something to it.
Yes.
And then putting energy into that, the sum of those two parts, then you're adding to that again. So you're creating a golden spiral of creation.
Yeah.
If you get your equations, I mean, I'm very interested in maths as well.
Yeah.
I
The
just
whole geometry nearly is it the sort of sacred. Yeah.
mathematical equation,
Yeah.
basically, because that's how
You
she and he, that's how
yes.
the great spirit has created this. I mean,
Yes.
what a designer.
I know. I know when I studied maths in college and I'd no idea why. I was like, what am I doing studying maths? But I feel it was leading me, or it is leading me. Nothing is wasted. Everything is, as you said, feeding in. And the sort of a fascination around sacred geometry has really come in. And that, would you say it's like, I've sort of seen, the feminine is sort of that, say the feminine energy is sort of the chaos creation sort of, where that aspect of it, and the masculine energy is more the structure and flow. So they sort of meet and work together. Or how do you see, is that how?
Um, well, I mean, it take, within the feminine energy, there's masculine energy, and
Yeah.
within
Okay.
there's
Okay.
feminine energy. And I do believe that if these energies are balanced, then that is where the most divine creativity occurs. But I hear what you're saying about the feminine carrying a lot of the chaos, creativity because of our wombs. Basically, our wombs are what separate us. Our physical structures, our wombs,
Yes.
dark places of creativity, and that is where all creation happens, in the darkness. So, there's both darkness and light in both of the sexes, and I think that there is a very, very, very intelligent divine plan behind both of our beings, and how we have evolved, and how we have evolved psychologically as well as physically as well.
And can you share a little that how do you see that?
I mean, women have evolved as, women who are allowing themselves to be in touch with their cycles and their wombs, basically. I mean, being in touch with our wombs, I think, is on par with being in touch with our hearts and our guts. Because we've got a womb. Men have the heart, the gut, all their sexual organs and things like that. But our womb is a phenomenally intelligent region. Like, it's endless. It's like those black holes out in space. It's like like those souterrains of our ancestors. It's a world of endless possibilities. So, I mean, I'm very thankful to be in the body of a woman this time round, and to be really able to allow myself to feel my physicality, which my mother wouldn't have been able to do because of the oppressed society that we lived in.
Yes.
We were taught that our bodies were separated from our minds. We were taught that our body had nothing to do with us, and to actually indulge in our bodies at some stages of our being was a sin. So I think that what sets us apart as women, if we can allow ourselves, it doesn't matter whether we're mothers or not, I don't think, because I've got a lot of women in my life who aren't mothers. Women are always mothers on some level, but it's checking in with the creativity of our womb. And one of the things that is very worrying to me in society in general, and health at the moment, is this, and it's particularly dangerous at the moment because people are talking about it way more. People are talking about the menopause way more. But it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because it's another layer of, okay, we're talking about it now, that means we don't really need to look at our wombs, do we? There is an element of that, and there's an element of glazing over what our potential is with,
During that time.
introduced things to
Yes.
happen.
Yeah. Yes.
There is literally a wealth. I mean, this is why if we look back through history, women of our age were in trouble a lot of the time.
We're in trouble.
They were in trouble, yeah, because the intelligence of their womb is rising
Yes.
at this time, and so they're troublesome.
Something troublesome. I like that word.
Yes.
So what should we be doing? So what should women be doing at that time rather than going, oh my God, we're a nation, we're a world, aren't we, of suppressing symptoms
Yeah.
rather than listening.
Look, Celine, I'm not an authority on,
Yeah.
anything about our
Yeah.
physicality, but I'm very interested in menopause
Yeah.
and have been since I was 30, because I wrote my thesis on qualifying as a homeopath. I wrote my thesis on menopause because
Okay.
I felt really interested in it, and particularly because my mother was dead at my age. She died as a result of her pathology changing. You know what I mean? If
Yes.
I was to look at it physically, you could have a lot of pathological changes as your body does this incredible change that we do at this age.
Mm.
But be very interested in it now. When in these past few years of going through menopause, I feel that was a very naive study on my case. But I mean, I thought at that time, well, this is great. I'm ahead of schedule here. I'm going to know exactly what to do when my menopause comes.
Doesn't
No,
work like that.
I couldn't have been further from the truth. It was
Really.
a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, but there's nothing like experiencing the experiences. But I now am in a place with it where I feel it has been one of the greatest gifts I've ever been shown. Really, really, really a gift. And so I'm not in the business of telling people what to do, but I can highly recommend, try and go there. Be
Go
brave,
deeper with it, is it?
take courage, go in there. Yeah. It's a wealth of knowledge. And I mean, my children and my family may not concur with it being a gift right now, but the nuances of it even. I mean, it is an incredibly powerful transition. It
Yeah.
really, really is.
What has come from it for you? Just talk about when you say, because there could be women listening going, what does she mean? Like, how do I, is it to sort of listen more and go deeper into what you're sort of feeling and what you're being shown and more like even physically, what is that? Where is that bringing me? Or what is it uncovering in me?
Being with it, beneficial to do some inner child work, which even as a homeopath, I didn't understand for years. When we were children, that would have been called navel gazing. Oh, look at them navel gazing away there now. In a little bit of a kind of a sinister way. I didn't realize how rich that the inner child work actually is for both you and because I suppose what the womb is doing is it's conjuring up memories. So it's kind of a map of your life so far, really. And then, like, if you can imagine turning a garment inside out and shaking out all of the fluff and electricity sparks are going off if it's a piece of wool or so your womb is literally doing that. It's physically atrophying. So it's turning, it's almost turning itself inside. And as it does, it's uncovering a lot of memories. And of course, we're all deeply wounded in one way or another from this or that event, or it could be a mild event, could be a massive event. Nobody is walking this earth without carrying wounds. So when they come up and when there is an actual chemical sort of battle going on between cortisol and estrogen and progesterone, and okay, I have to go somewhere. Yeah, but I also have to go somewhere, and I have to come out. So it's kind of cellular memory meets the endocrine system. Sparks are flying, literally.
That's a brilliant description.
And because we have a very small understanding of our endocrine system, it makes it so bloody hard to understand for so many people. But that, there is, and I have been lucky enough now in the last few years to meet the amazing Jane Catherine Severn from New Zealand, whose book I have right here. So I'm going to show it to you.
Yes.
This is her book, The World Within Women.
Oh, wow. The World Within Women.
Jane is a psychotherapist.
She's a psychotherapist, is it?
Trained psychotherapist. Yes. The World Within Women, a Remembering, is what she calls it. And so she has introduced us to the Feminome, a guide to your menstrual cycle. So basically, Jane has spent her life studying our endocrine system and how we can work with our hormones, basically, and recognize our cycles and the energies within them. And when it's time to create, when it's time to go, when it's time to let fly, when it's time to, organize and get all your ducks in, there is a time. If we have the knowledge of our hormones, there's no reason that the menopause can't be the most beneficial time to flourish within our existence as women, mothers, grandmothers, and daughters, if we're lucky enough to have.
Yeah.
It's something that I feel that women have been led away from over the years. But I mean, and then we can say all this, and we can say it's because of that, and it's because of this, and it's because of the other thing. But I felt from my own volition at 30 to explore the menopause. So I feel that I'm very lucky to have a curious nature. But I feel that through the curiosity is where we find the real jewels. So curious about our own bodies and going into our own bodies, I think that's where the treasure is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You've such a beautiful image of turning inside out. Like, to me, when you even say a remembrance, I just go back to cancer because it was the sort of big triggering for me. And when you talk about the endocrine system and the hormones, I could feel what was going. I mean, I was blasted straight into to menopause, but before that, but I didn't understand, and I was looking outward in the world and going, okay, I need to be going non-stop. There was no understanding of there's a period to rest, a period, as you said, to create, to make, and I could feel my body showing that, and then eventually it shut down, and I did my own research, and I could see that it was what would you say, it was an estrogen based cancer. So it was sort of it was like an overproduction of estrogen through stress. And I remember telling the doctors, I know why I have it, and they were like, yes, we know you do, Celine. But I knew at the deepest level, and I still went through. I mean, it's been a deep inner discovery since then for me, what you're saying.
And collaborating with your body, that is, you collaborated with your inner system, and that is, I believe, our strongest key to healing ourselves.
Yes.
Is working, it's all one system.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's still, yeah.
We're not going to go into why we were detached from our bodies, because it's just beyond ridiculous to think of the things that women were told and believed and kept fear of. Anyway, that is no longer the case. this is
Yeah.
what we're working with now. We're working with women like Jane Catherine who are devoting their lives to uncovering all this treasure and writing it down for us to learn, sharing their knowledge. Like that was, we were so honored to have Jane Catherine here in Studio Fasta, sharing her knowledge 2 years ago. She was in Ireland. I hope and pray that she will come back because she's a very unique teacher. She has some very unique teachings. And she runs a place called Luna House, which is all about educating people about their menstrual cycles, men and women, not just women. She wants men educated as well, because there's no point in, it's all about a balance, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, it's one thing knowing the endocrine system, and it's one thing being aware of cortisol and all the rest of it. But to come back to what we were saying, I have personally gained from the menopause is just the amount of tools that we are equipped with without even going outside the door of our own homes. If we can go inside ourselves, we've got everything we need in there to deal with this situation. And the more we can imagine our hormones and our cells and our cellular function and all the rest of it, and even the womb. Like I went through a period of I could feel that it was going, that it was coming to a very atrophied stage, maybe this time last year. I hadn't bled in 2 years. I'm coming up to 3 years since I bled. So 3 years menopause. And I went through a phase of, it gave me a lot. I went through a phase of every night before I went to sleep, I would give thanks and gratitude to my womb and that whole area, because I have 2 beautiful daughters and a beautiful grandson. And so the gratitude for that, the gratitude for the teaching that I am now being offered by this incredibly intelligent system. I mean, think about how intelligent that system is. Our is such an incredible system.
Yeah.
Designed.
And and how would you, for women who are listening to you now and saying, you're talking about going within and really exploring there, and if that is something so new and sort of like, what do you mean? How would you even just suggest some ways they may start to do that? Because so many are out. We're all, guided outwards, busy, do.
I think listening to your body's messages and listening. So the way that it has been explained to me over the last few years, particularly through Jane Catherine's work and teachings, is to understand, okay, when a situation arises, go, okay, what is this trying to tell me? What part of my physicality or my emotional state or my spiritual state, where do I need to put my attention so that I can look at this? And it's like a bleeper going off. It's like a circuit board of intelligence. Okay, bleeper going off over here. You need to look at diet, for example. So see what foods are really making you feel comfortable within your system and clear within your head. And I mean, there's so much in it. I think listening, and it's very individual. And of course, like having the remedies and the natural medicines that I have always used all through my life, I have found very beneficial, because there are some physicalities that are excruciatingly painful. I don't know if every woman goes, but there's always, moving through physical symptoms as well as spiritual and emotional symptoms So having your tools to hand on the outside as well, whatever
Yeah.
drawn to, and I believe there is a place for absolutely every form of medicine, including allopathy. You know what I mean? Never, I, I have always believed that. And so just that's what I say at the moment. I've opened my practice for young mothers and babies and children. And that would be my deepest message to a mother of a new child. Really listen and really trust, because you're dealing with a system that couldn't be reproduced out here in the material world.
Mm.
It's not possible
Mm.
to reproduce it because it's fractal. It's changing all.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
you see, we're living in a world where we're led to believe that all of the new intelligence and all of the this and that and the other thing is far more powerful than us. It's not.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
I'm not that from an egotistical point of view. I'm saying that from common sense. It just isn't. It couldn't be. There's no
Mm.
way of reproducing certain elements of our being and certain elements of nature's design. There's no way of reproducing it, because it's individual
Mm.
to every person. It's individual to itself. It's individual to its circumstances. You could go on and on and on to infinity, like
Yeah.
this Fibonacci. It is the
Yes.
Fibonacci. So
That it's beautiful how you say it, because yeah, that's sort of adding something and then the sum total, and you add to that, and then nature adds, and how I've noticed that as well since I started to let go of maybe the older, since, the more mental way of dealing with life. It doesn't work as well for me. It's more if I intuitively, I suppose, yeah, when you're speaking as well, what comes to mind so much is sort of following that intuitive voice. And the other side of that to me is that a lot of people I would meet might say, well, I don't know if I recognize it. And you talked about nature there and natural remedies, and from experience, I think, well, I feel what's a big part of it is reducing a lot of the toxins that we might have within our bodies as well, because it's hard to hear. I know that personally for myself. When I was laden down, I didn't even know what I was laden down with. And now that I use a lot of the natural oils as well, and I feel them working with my body's intelligence. And I'd say to people, I use the doTERRA because I feel they are very high frequency and pure. And I know there's others, but they're suddenly working with me in a very unique way. It's probably like, it's not like take this and this will fix this. I'm listening, and
yeah,
there's a whole something bigger, so much bigger is happening, isn't there?
yeah.
When you
I
move.
Essential oils have been a part of my toolkit forever now. I,
Mm.
I, because what's happening is you're engaging your senses, and you're giving a gift to your senses, which calms the whole nervous system down. Anything we can do to calm our whole nervous system down
Mm.
enables us to hear the system on what the system needs. So working with your parasympathetic nervous system, with the vagus nerve, working with the oils, as you say, the olfactory nerves, working with our diet, working with, I would call my homeopath, and I'd go for a good old consultation, and I'd put it out into her hands. But generally, you know what I mean? So always be open. There's a way. There is a way. There's always a way. That's the
Mm.
thing.
Yeah.
There never is a way. There are no problems. There are only solutions. That's
Mm.
one of the mottos. And it's in finding the solution that we find a lot of other treasure. So being curious about being, the best version of ourselves, physically, mentally, spiritually, being curious even about, we don't have to achieve anything. Nobody except ourselves have the expectations on us. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, the people that we're trying to impress.
Yeah.
I'm the person I'm trying to impress. And if I'm not impressing myself, I'm like, Okay, hang on now a minute. Fun no maid.
You know, when you say about who are you impressing, or are you impressing yourself, another side to that for me, I don't know how you feel about this, is that sometimes you have to go back in this, and maybe it happens through the menopause when the everything is thrown inside out, is that maybe a lot of the voices and the beliefs and everything that you had were not yours in the first place, you know, that they sort of have happened through just culture and society and your family and your upbringing. And I'm only now at this age in my 50s going, oh, why do I believe that? Like, you know, it's sort of a questioning, like you said, a curiosity going. It's like this little light bulb every now and again is going off for me going, what's that about? Who said that? Or where did that come from? And I never questioned it. And I suddenly, I think one of them was about being safe, or there was something. And one day this light bulb went off and said something like, but you are safe.
You're like, wait a second, fun no maid. I don't, I don't believe that, or I don't want, I don't want this to be the portrayal of myself. That it doesn't feel like me. But of course, Celine, you know, we're coming out of a very long period of indoctrination.
Yeah.
So our belief systems are, you know, and I mean, I'm a true believer in this is what we have now. So I'm not a believer in blame or anything like that. I just believe that we need to work with what we have here and now. That's all we've got. And that's an actually sequence. That it just means that we're endlessly creating our reality. So regardless of what indoctrination we have been subject to in our lives, you know, I do feel that it's a bit human nature can lean into that very easily, because lead and follow, or be the leaders and need to be followed, or, you know, this, if you look at horses, for example, I keep a mare and I lived horse drawn for years. If you look at horses in a herd, there's always a lead mare. And there, you know, you can get 30 horses to go somewhere if you know who the lead mare is, because they all follow. You know, we were, you know, sometimes you'd have to sneak the horses into fields at night when in years and years ago. And you know, you have to know the lead mare for to be able to get everybody out safely, or to lead everybody to the next piece of grazing safely. You'll find it in most species, most mammals anyway. There's leaders and there's followers, and there's followers and there's leaders. So there has always been a place for, you know, people within society who have been the teachers or the instructors. It's just got a little bit misconstrued over the past few millennia there, but nothing that we can't deal with, because we're still the same intelligent structures. You know, it's only a matter of remembering who we are.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Isn't that
the
it?
world change tomorrow. We all
Yeah.
are.
But I sort of feel like conversations like this, every conversation between two people can spark a remembering. That's why I feel, because it's others that I've come in touch with who've like said something and I go, oh, you know, isn't it? So this is how powerful and how quick, as you said, in a moment, like lighting a match. You know, I've had people through listening to the podcast or conversations will say, oh my God, like whatever was going on for me, and suddenly something sparked. And we don't know, don't we not, like what sparks some in someone else, like what turns on, I don't know, their DNA, different.
Memory, it's cellular, because
Yeah,
we're both
cellular memory. Yeah.
the cellular memory of all that has ever been is within us, you know. So, and that was my strongest reason for creating the studio space.
Yeah. Will you talk a bit about it? Sorry, because I haven't asked you much about Studio Fassa. Yeah.
You just said it there now. When people come together and start conversing and collaborating and creating together, new creations come out of the inside of that. And I very much, because I went to art school, and, that's why fashion is because, once one person has an idea, another person thinks, God, that's a great idea. Amazing. And that's why fashion is fashion. It's because of followers and creative leaders and things like that. So life is like that as well. And like when I studied homeopathy, I just remember going into the Byrne School of Homeopathy, and we'd go in there for a weekend, a month for 4 years. We studied in that
Wow.
week, and every weekend, once our group would come together, we new information, and we were only one of the years. New information was always coming in because we were discussing it. And then we'd all suddenly go, oh, yeah. And even the tutor would go, oh, yeah, that's an aspect.
Yes.
And that's, and common sense would tell you that was very true about that, or that illness that we were discussing, or whatever. So, I've always more than one, and this creativity happens. And you see it out in nature as well. What all of those relatives, those beautiful relatives of ours, they're all working in symbiosis.
Yeah. Yeah. Rather than competition, this idea of competition is just so unnatural, isn't it?
Well, because we're symbiotic, we are a symbiotic species. We're not a singular cell.
Yeah.
Drifting around, all of us drifting around. Oh, sorry, I bumped into you there. We're literally all living in symbiosis, no matter what way you look at it.
Mm.
So powerful any one of us thinks we are. We're not.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Because
know how so
without each other, we're nothing without each other.
yeah. Yeah.
We
You
don't
don't
work.
blossom or bloom, don't you, without, others. Like and I've said it, but I just have to say it because I'm always so grateful for it, that ever since I was guided, or a woman guided me to start this podcast, I've just been sent women as teachers and gifts and men too. But it's just like this. I'm nothing without any of it, if you know what I mean. I would be nothing without any of it. Like it's through that sort of cross fertilization, nearly, isn't it? Um,
And the symbiotic, and even at the beginning of our conversation, you reflected something back to me that I hadn't heard since I had written it down from my website, and it was so beautiful. So it's a two-way street.
mm,
You've created this beautiful podcast, but you're holding a mirror up to anybody that you interview, which is a really, really positive and creative way of, I really believe in ripple effects of healing, just going out and going out. And we've got it. We have everything we need right now
mm,
for to make children and people safe,
yeah.
and animals, and
Yeah.
those who are vulnerable.
What? Yeah.
It's it's in creating these communities that there is, I have no doubt in my mind that we have already shifted into a new reality, but we just can't all see it right now.
Yeah.
But there's no option. It's there's no option. The other option is fading out. So
Yeah.
we've got to keep remembering in our systems. right here, this body, people
Mm.
with the body. And I saw an amazing diagram recently, and I'd seen it years ago as well. I think it's within the Hopi tribe. Because I mean, it's all very simple, it's all very back to basics. So it's an ancient cave painting. Oh, please forgive me if I don't have the right tribe and the right description, because I'm quoting some very, very important indigenous wisdom. But there are these cave drawings, and there is a road, like a line, and there are human beings walking along that line. Their heads are severed from their bodies. And then there's a line below that. And this line up here starts getting really jagged and hard to climb and, you know, complicated. And then there's the other line where people's heads are attached to their bodies. And they're going along and they're creating that line. And it's a good, healthy red, you know, walking the red road, as those beautiful indigenous people say. And like, it may seem very simplistic to some people, but I think our most important activity at the moment is to go inside our bodies and connect with ourselves, because as we've been saying for the entire conversation, our cells hold all of what we need to know, and they're in there to tell us.
Oh wow. Yeah, that is I can feel that as you say it, it's like my cells feel it, you know, it's sort of, you know, sometimes I described it one day, it was something I was doing. I think I was in an oxygen tank and I literally could feel my cells dancing, you know, they were like, way, space, you know, you've given me space. They were all tight and yeah, but they literally, hmm?
When you oxygenate them and give them a little bit of room to move.
That's it. And then, like coming out, I could just feel this much more expansive, yeah, sense of myself, you know, not in a real ego, "Oh, look at me." It wasn't that. It was a connection to everything that you're, as you, exactly as you describe, Róisín, sort of this complete system, that we are this complete system. I think that's such an important message to for people to, you know, listening to remember, and all of the natural tools you said. I the reason, and I know you've been doing this all your life, but when I discovered the oils, and I go on, I harp on about them because it's just like something new, something so great is opening up in me. I still can't put words on it, but it's just that intelligence that's just yeah, I don't know. It's just expanding and expanding. So yeah. So that's where we need to put our, not need to, but that's how we, I just get an image when you describe that of where do we put, are we going to look over here at what we're creating? Are we going to look, a great astrologer, Pam Gregory always says, don't look back at the collapsing scenery. And I love that statement. It sort of describes it, doesn't it, quite well, you know.
Yeah,
You know, you don't have
yeah.
to fight with them, don't do anything. Just don't look back at the collapsing scenery. Off you go into the new.
We give our energy to prevails.
Yeah,
That's how our system is designed. You
yeah.
know, so we've got to be. Is the work for me in the last few years, and actually, I'm really leaning into discernment this week, because I'm about to do. I started a photo shoot. This is not off topic, by the way. I started a photo shoot in 2014 to celebrate women on the land, and I called it the Wild Woman Photo Shoots.
Aha, very relevant.
So I'm about to do an installment of that with a beautiful photographer and a model this week. And I was up doing a recce yesterday, and I'm celebrating hawthorn because, well, for billions of obvious reasons. It's our heart plant, it's our heart medicine, it's our DNA manifest on the land, I feel. And most of all, what I really feel will be a beautiful statement to make is to remember Sciahach, who is the goddess of hawthorn. And this is in my knowledge anyway, and what I've read and intuited from the tree itself. Sciahach would have been where Cuchulainn and Fionn McCool and the warriors of the Fine and warriors in general would have been sent for training to this woman, Sciahach. And I've really been leaning into that in the last few years because I've been working. I adore the hawthorn tree, and I made a dress for it a few years ago because I happened to have a piece of wool that really reminded me of the hawthorn on the land as it went back in towards autumn with its dark leaves and its red berries. And anyway, Sciahach's message, I believe, even though, and this is what I get when I lean into her energy, is yes, you must learn how to fight, but you must learn how to fight with discernment. You must discern when, because what started me on this train of thought, Celine, was I was thinking about, the very obvious situation of our world where people are killing each other, and just thinking about individual people with weapons killing other individual people, which it's a bleak thought, but just thinking about, well, what are they thinking when they pull that trigger? What are they thinking about the fact that they're killing somebody and they're going out in the morning with the potential to kill? And this is when I started thinking about Sciahach. And so there's always been, and it fascinates me about our species, the fact that we're prey and predator at the same time. Whereas in a lot of the natural kingdom, you're either prey or predator. But it's always fascinated me about myself when I look at my own human nature, the fact that we all have the capacity to kill somebody within us. I just find it probably a bit morbidly fascinating, but it just makes me reflect on the world. And what I feel Sciahach's message is, and the message of hawthorn, is that your heart knows, and we know it's a heart medicine. We know it's for the emotional heart and the physical heart and the spiritual heart. It's got so much connection specifically, I feel, to our Celtic DNA, or I don't know how we describe our DNA, because you do get hawthorn across the Mediterranean and possibly into the Middle East as well, where it possibly turns into the pomegranate tree or something. I don't know. I go off on, but what Sciahach, one of her most important teachings, in fact, probably the most important teaching, is to be able to decide when to kill and when not to kill. Because, and it's a very, very important teaching, because discernment, obviously, if somebody is coming at you about to kill, you know what I mean? We could go into this, and it's a very morbid topic, but it's real. This is the world that we're living in. It's real. And is anybody talking about it? Is anybody, all of those young people who are getting weapons put into their hands, is anybody talking to them about it?
Yeah, I don't, yeah, I know.
I could get very emotional about it.
Yeah.
Because I just find that it is heartbreaking. It's not in our nature to just wantonly kill for no reason. It's not a part of who we are. We don't need to do it.
No.
There's plenty for everybody. It's mind-blowingly needless.
Yeah. Let this be the end. Let this be the end that, like you said, let this be the end. Like, when you describe it. And Hawthorne, it's every time I'm about to talk to a guest, it's so well, it's not unbelievable in one way because we're back to the intelligence of the system. Yesterday, I kept getting a message about Hawthorne. Hawthorne, Hawthorne, Hawthorne. I sent someone, I'm in a herbalist group, and I had a problem with numbness. There's something deeper. I need to talk to my fingers because they were going numb. And then someone said, talk to Hawthorne. And Hawthorne kept coming up. And it's so interesting. Here we are back to the heart. There's probably something, what it
It's
brings me back to when I listen to you, Róisín, is it's all about coming back into the heart. Because if you're in your heart, I don't think you can do what you've just said, about the sending young people out into killing
true.
needlessly, if we
Well,
connect.
I got an amazing message from the heart and the mind and just the world in general recently, in which the mind is capable of telling lies. The mind is duality.
Yes.
So we can convince ourselves of anything if we're operating from the mind.
Yes.
The heart, on the other hand, is incapable of not telling the truth. It can't not tell the truth. It doesn't have any choice. There's no compartment, there's no capacity. Whereas there is here. There's no capacity here to lie or to be dishonest or dishonor, or it's not in it. And that is why, where I was talking about that, the Hopi teaching with the people with their
Yes.
heads severed,
Yes.
that is no heart connection. That is no gut connection. That is no cellular connection. That's a lost civilization heading for a very jagged road, and unsurmountable hurting and wounding and chaos, really, really. So, the more complete individually is all we can work with at the moment, because that's all any of us individually can control, is how we think, what we use, what intelligence we lean into, and then see. My mother had a great phrase all our lives. I used to love it because, if you'd ask her for something, she'd say, "We'll see." And I just love that phrase. It's full of hope and possibilities. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's lovely, isn't
Then we'll see.
it?
We don't know what the outcome is. I mean,
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
multiple outcomes possible. At the end of the day, we're not the ones who are going to be making the decision. We can only make decisions based on our present reality and what is the best way to act now. It's
Yeah.
really, yeah. We
It
need
is,
to
isn't it?
simplify lives.
Because what you described there, it's literally whatever, well, I feel whatever energy I'm feeling moving through me in the moment now is what is guiding me. It's not guiding me tomorrow. It's not guiding, so I can only, if I'm to live in that sort of possibility and creating from that place, I have to be here now, isn't it? Ram Dass says, be here now. There's,
Absolutely, because I remember Nuala Ising, who started the School of Homeopathy, beautiful woman. And I still remember one of the first phrases I heard her say. It has stuck with me all my life. The only magic that can happen is now. That's
wow, doesn't that say it all? Wow, like that just, we're all searching often for magic out and something that's going to happen. The only magic that can happen is now.
And so bring it back, bring it back, bring it back to the present.
Well,
And
Róisín, yeah.
we go into our bodies. That is, we like, I didn't discover meditation until the last few years, and I'm absolutely kicking myself going, why did we not know this when we were teenagers or 20 or children? Or, I mean, children now, my grandson, he'll sit and meditate
That's brilliant.
now, in a very 8-year-old kind of way, but he's aware of meditation.
Yeah.
And when we're going inwards, with our breath and with our stillness, we're in the present. So we are consciously putting ourselves into the only place that we can really manifest and create from. And we've decided to do it. And we're in complete control of it. So people who fear a lack of control or anything like that, that's all because it's, people are given to believe, some people choose to believe that they're being controlled from the outside. They're not. They're not at all.
Sort of an illusion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just not possible in quantum reality.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That the quantum reality is akin to the heart. Quantum physics is heart medicine. Science, maybe a little bit more like the mind, capable of conjuring up scenarios. Quantum physics isn't. Physics, the physical reality is not capable of conjuring anything up because it just is what it is.
Yeah. But it's sort of the end result of the imagining, isn't it, really? Once it's in the material realm. That's like the movie that you've been projecting. What have you been playing on the projector? Because what's out there now is what you were imagining or dreaming even unconsciously before that. So it's become very real to me now. It may be delayed, it may be a while later, but that's our power of once we start shifting internally.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And I do very much believe in my heart that regardless of what we're seeing in certain physical realities now, it's not a representation of how humanity is reflecting onto the planet at the moment.
Yes.
And that's the bit that we don't hear about, because most humans are reflecting beautifully with this planet.
Yes. Well, I'm going to sort of wrap it up shortly, but just to say that is such a beautiful way to end it as well, at Róisín, and the magic that we are. It just brings me to the magic that you've brought here today to be here with you chatting.
Thank you so much, and likewise.
It's just is the magic, and it is. And thank you for that reminder and for everyone listening, that we are, and to remember and to know that we are complete systems, to come back into the heart. And, all I can say is from my own experience, the more that I and I'm reminded and reflected from you, the more I do that, my world is shifting every day and every moment in beautiful ways. That's available. We're all part of it, don't we? And as you said, we don't do this alone. We do this together. So the more we keep yeah. And thank you for saying that at the very beginning, that reflection, because that is so, and we can only reflect what's in ourselves. So I suppose that's good too,
I do. I mean, that is one of my strongest beliefs, is that we are here for each other. We are here for each other. And recently, I was chatting with my brother and my husband just about the world in general and things like that, and I was contemplating symbiosis. There is no lack of resources if we're living in symbiosis. We're designed as a symbiotic system. The whole thing, the whole earth is designed to be symbiotic. And I think it's a very important message for us all to know that we do have the tools within ourselves, and it's actually common sense. And it's not about leaning into various spiritual teachings or, you know, going off and reading and becoming enlightened or anything like that. It's not. It's literally common sense. It's just leaning into the very simple ways that we exist on this planet. We're just living from our heart, you know. I mean, Hawthorne. So funny when you said this morning, because it reminded me of my waking thought was somebody in my dream was saying, sure, Hawthorne doesn't have catkins at all. Hawthorne is nudging at all of us. She's
I know.
at all of us for years now. I think it was in 2017. I spent the whole summer, its whole blossoming season, getting downloads of how it's so innate to the Irish indigenous land, to the indigenous people, to how we are how we represent ourselves out in the world. To, you know, I mean, I do think that we, I don't know about any other, I think most cultures, because one of the main things that has come to me recently is that I think is important is I think we're only a couple of generations away from, like, say, within families or within groups or communities, people being able to say exactly what they wanted to each other, and, you know, calling each other out for, you shouldn't do that, that's not right. We're gone into a world where a lot of things, you know, it's almost gone the opposite of oppression, whatever that is.
Mm.
We can't I do believe that just expressing ourselves in a very simple manner and expressing our love and connection with what we live within symbiosis with, it's
Mm.
for health. It has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because the more you lean into it, the more it gives you. I mean, once
Yeah.
you recognize the intelligence of nature, it's endless, the information.
Yeah. But when you come back into the heart as well, Róisín, isn't it? Like I always feel if I can communicate from my heart, it's very different to communicating from the mind or the ego, where it does come in, you can be lashing out, that we like that symbiosis is sort of happens when you're in your heart, doesn't it? So it is the key. It's back to what you said and that prophecy and everything by coming back into, and that entails being vulnerable as well, because that's what I found a bit of. I'm gonna we'll just as we sort of come to an end now, but it was just something I want to say to you or ask you earlier, and I suppose it's around that coming into the heart, like what I've experienced, and people often I talk to as well is about sometimes this coming into the heart is painful if you haven't been there for a long time. So I suppose there's just a little bit of gentleness maybe we have to be with ourselves, isn't it? Because there
Yeah.
can be a sudden backlog of everything that rushes to the surface. So just to be okay with that, like it will be okay. It just needs to find an avenue out of us, I think, doesn't it? And through us.
And that's so true, Celine. And really, what these, particularly, I suppose, the menopause kind of sequence of events has taught me is to be, to make friends with the pain and make friends with the dark aspects of yourself that you live in fear of, because we're all capable of such huge range of emotions. And you know, to be okay with your shadow side is an absolute and utter. I mean, I've been saying to myself, why did I not know that? Jeez,
Mm.
you know, this is such an exquisite piece of information wait a second, you can go to the wound and you can sit with the wound and be okay with the wound for a minute and actually create a really loving relationship with the wound and a friendship with the dark aspects. This is life changing. And we can. We can do that on the material level and the emotional level and the physical level. We can make, we can go into, as you clearly have done yourself, with your experience with cancer, be with it. Go, okay, what are we doing here? What is this dance? Are we going that way? Am I spinning you around? Are you spinning me around? How can we dance into the golden light, I suppose, or something very positive like that? But it is kind of possible to just be with it rather than being afraid of it. And the more I feel that you remove the fear from the shadow aspects of yourself, the less fearful you are in the world, because actually, okay, it sounds frightening and it is frightening, but I actually have all these other bits of me to work with. So I'm not really frightened. Sorry about that. Does that kind of mess with your plan a little bit? Gomelish. Sorry, just not afraid of that right now anymore.
Yeah.
And I think more of us that do that.
Yeah.
Up and be counted within it.
Yeah. I think we are. I think, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Róisín. I won't hold you any longer. And I just want to thank you.
Amazing conversation, Celine.
Yeah. I could stay talking to you all day, but I don't know. I think it's we can always do another one. It's just been such a gift. Thank you. Thank you. I keep getting the image of the bee. Sorry, I'm going off again now because a woman said this to me yesterday, the bee going out.
Bees.
Yeah, rather than like trying to get anywhere, she was just what you said there to that about that pollination. The bee is going around pollinating and dropping. It's not, and it's just, and that's, it just reminds me of that's how we're all doing it with each other, sort of pollinating each other, isn't it? And we're just moving, and we're not going, what can I get from that? What are you going to give me? We just all it's just that intelligence that has us just moving and weaving with each other and pollinating each other, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's
That's
where it is in the reflection. What can I reflect to the world that is going to be most useful at this stage in kind of semi-emergency? We are at an accelerated, and we could have a whole series of conversations around the bees, because I think we need to paying attention to the bees opens up such a vast intelligence. Vast. And we have different saints that have told us that for millennia. Gobnet and Bridget and all of our really intelligent teachings around what bees, the lesson of the bee, there's plenty for everyone. Abundance. But we could always see each other as well if we wanted to, or kill the queen, or like I have several theories on the bees that are quite far out. Their relationship.
share one before we finish up.
Well, I think their relationship with Venus is because Venus is very importantly working in symbiosis with the earth. And so to get back to the heart energy, like I even think into the level of the fear around bees, because the planet won't exist without bees. We all know that. They're one of the most instrumental and incremental species that we have. So people are, like humanity, are obviously abusing every species that there is. But the bees disappearing is really high on the list of fears. but they can disappear, and they do disappear quite regularly. I think they are interdimensional with Venus. And the
Wow.
other thing that they gave me last year is, and this is, I hope I can get it across in the way that I comprehend it. So they go to Venus to recharge because it's full of pure love. And that's what they're operating from. That's their energy system. That's their ESB, pure love. But in order for them to recharge on Venus, we have to be loving towards each other. Because if humans are loving towards each other, that charges Venus, because Venus wants to be Earth and Earth wants to be Venus. You can see these teachings in a lot of writings and drawings of geometry and things like this. It's this dance, as we were saying. What dance are we in? Who's spinning who here? Well, we're spinning each other, actually. It's the double helix. So the more humans are kind and generous and loving towards each other and living from the heart, the higher vibration of not only the earth, but Venus as well. So when the bees go there, they physically can come back in so much more strength if we work in symbiosis with them.
Wow. Oh my God, that's such a
I
beautiful.
don't know if that's understandable. I understand it within me, but I think into a lot of things very deeply.
I've never heard that, but I can feel it like, and it's interesting how that came up yesterday in another conversation about the bees. You know, when things start coming up into awareness more widely, you know, more people are talking about them, you go, well, there's something happening there. And there's big shifts with Venus as well. You know, there's all these
Oh,
planetary shifts we're going through right now, anyways, which just signify endings and beginnings. And but Venus is very much, you know, isn't she at she's moving, well, she's in Aries right now.
she
June.
is. She's in retrograde, which
Yeah.
means gone into a very pensive and inward
Yeah.
being. And I was just thinking there, because I'd like to clarify, because it feels out there what I just said about the bees. But basically, what I'm trying to say by that is that, Venus being the planet of abundance and love, and, a very important part of our intelligence, no more than all the rest of the planets and the cosmos. And, I very much take a lot of teachings from there. But what I do believe that is that we're charging Venus up and she's charging us up. And the bees are the conduit,
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
the
Yes.
pollinators, basically.
Yes.
But one feels stronger when the other is stronger. It's like the strong, we bring each
Mm.
on in strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep pollinating each other and
And
spreading the magic.
pollination back at each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Róisín. I
Oh,
let you go here. It's been such a gift. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And what I'll do is I'll put all of your details here for anyone who wants to reach out and maybe have you any specific message or way of contacting people you'd like to. I know you have a website, which I'll give details of.
FASA, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
best. So,
Yeah.
any of the workshops happening here are advertised on there. I also, it's on my website if anybody needs a space in which to bring a group together for a workshop, just contact.
Okay.
All my details are on there. So it's, we offer workshops and we are welcoming in workshops and creative as well. I had a theatre company here just a couple of months ago developing a new show. So, it's a it's a bridge between both worlds here at Studio Fab.
Hmm.
Still my costume studio. I still do a lot of design work here and a lot of wellness work and my homeopathy practice is open here on a Tuesday every week now for babies and children. And
Beautiful.
it's such a lovely thing to share. Such a
Wow.
there. The children
Wow.
are so important in my
Yeah,
world.
they are. They're our teachers, aren't they? And but
Oh
it's
my God.
yeah. But it's lovely what you said, a bridge between worlds. And yeah, let's keep being, because it feels like that's what we are sort of being called to do. We are bridging, hopefully, letting the collapsing scenery go as the new world is emerging through
Um,
us, really.
yeah, yeah. A
Like
bridge, a bridge to our own sides, a bridge to the inside.
a bridge to the inside. Yeah. A bridge home. Thank
Uh,
you, Róisín. We'll go, and
thank
I'll stop the recording.
you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Róisín, for being so generous with your time, your wisdom, your heart.
An
Uh,
absolute pleasure.
until the next time. Take
Absolute
care, everyone.